What is going on, guys? Rewind Mike here, and today I'm going to talk about 5 Sega games that I've truly loved. As a matter of fact, I've made multiple lists before inside multiple books, and every time I make a list for like a Sega Genesis type topic, these games always come up on that list, but they're not games that I could like justify whole videos for, so these are like honorable mentions, the games you'd see at like the end of somebody's top 10 list. That's pretty much what these are, so I hope you guys enjoy it. Maybe there's some games you haven't heard of. Maybe there's some you have, but regardless, these are still games that I wanted to talk about. So I've given myself a platform on which to show them to you guys, and I hope you enjoy it. Here's a unique take on the matching puzzle genre. In columns, you must slide gems around a board trying to line up different colors. The jewels can be matched in any angle. Some alignments can even trigger chain reactions. Much like any game in this genre though, the only goal is to stop the pieces from stacking to the top. The box goes on to say that you don't need to be a joystick whiz to excel. I personally beg to differ. This game is hard as hell. I think Column puts up more of a challenge than Tetris does. It even requires a bit more strategy. Unlike Tetris, the pieces don't come at you in patterns. Each gem is randomly placed in a stack, then thrown at you with no fucks given. So trying to master this would take some practice, but that doesn't make it a bad game. If you lose, it's your fault, not because the game was programmed by a monkey smashing a keyboard. Not to bring it up again, but much like Tetris, Columns has really relaxing music. The Sega soundboard really helps to spark the brain and put it into that thinking place. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, this isn't the most fast-paced game ever, but where it lacks in speed, it makes for an amazing gameplay. It has some really cool shootouts, everything feels really gratified. There's parts of the game where you're clinging on the side of the car, and it just really makes up for it with action. Like a ton of action packed in every corner. Tracy is a side-scrolling action game that has you going to war against mobsters well in pursuit of Big Boy Caprice. The Kingpin is gathering up nitroglycerin to take out his competition. This dick detective must clean up the town and crack open this crime ring. There are about 6 different stages in the whole game, but each contains 3 segments. There are technically 3 different modes here in this game as well. As I mentioned before, the high-speed chases are just good fun to play. You ride down the street hanging on the side of a vehicle, dodging bullets, jumping on the roof of the car, and just looking like a fucking total badass doing it. The other 2 parts kind of play very similar. You're cleaning up the streets and simply shooting anything that moves. Enemies start rolling in off the screen, pole vault jumping at you, firing at you from every angle, throwing dynamite, and it just really gets hectic and at times is almost unmanageable. Then there are the tougher parts of the game where you just can't use your gun at all. This is where the game really starts to test you. The thing is, the enemies still have their own weapons, but you're completely fucked. Oh, there are some really cool boss fights too. Although they all play out the same pretty much, it still adds to the overall difficulty and longevity of the game. If you find yourself on the wrong side of the tracks, you'll be sleeping with the fishes. The Genesis was a great home to some of the more obscure titles during the 16-bit life cycle. Now, Decap Attack contributes to that illustrious title. I was never able to beat this game as a kid, and because of that, it was sort of always a curiosity for me. It stars Chuck D. Head, an experiment of Frank N. Stein. Now, although Frank N. Stein is a doctor, he is horrible with human anatomy. Dr. Stein places your head inside of your stomach. Really cool. Now, Chuck wasn't made just for the sake of science. He was actually conceived with a mission, and it's to stop all the other creations that the Doctor has made. This game starts out super easy, and it gives you a bit of time to get used to the concept of taking everything face on. Hitting people with your misplaced appendage is the primary mode for attack, with an additional head that can be found in the shrunken head statues. These skulls can be launched at enemies, but are lost anytime that you take a hit. The arid deserts, polluted wastelands, and spewing volcanoes are fantastic ideas for stages and fit the overall tone of this game. The artwork and detail really remind me of something you would see on like a TurboGrafx 16 title. The layouts of the stages are well thought out. The developers didn't just throw platforms, pits, and enemies into the environments, so you're going to have to use your head to navigate the twisting areas. Inside the 7 stages, there are 3 sections you need to beat. It's in that 3rd section that you actually have to collect some sort of treasure in order to even cross the finish line and move on. These sections force you to search every corner of the map in order to find that artifact or treasure. The worst part is, these are the stages that have the bosses on them, so if you take a ton of damage trying to find that required item, it was just not worth it, and it's part of the reason why it makes the game really difficult, is because you just wind up losing all your lives, having to go back to stage 1 of that area, and just starting all over. With potions to collect, totally out of the ordinary bosses, and eye-popping enemies, Decap Attack is a decaptivating game that always had me coming back for more. Alright, this one's a little different. I don't know quite where to begin with it. You know, not many people really care for racing games, and I get that, but I love them. And Lotus Turbo Challenge really isn't like an exception. Like, that's one of those games like I've absolutely always loved. It just takes the simple idea of racing through like certain environments, kind of like Outrun did. But the races are split up into 8 different stages that have you racing to the checkpoint to recover time in hopes of reaching the finish line. In the chance that you don't reach a checkpoint, the race is over, and you must start the whole game over. But if the time runs out and your car is still in motion and you can see the finish line, you can still cross it to gain your time, continuing on your way. Yeah! If none of this happens though, there is a password system that will allow you to return to the start of any race. The 2-player mode in this game is pretty much perfect. It doesn't slow down, and the game isn't purposely staggered to make it play perfectly. There are a ton of moving things on the screen alongside AI-controlled cars that try to knock you around. Most of the tracks are even hazards themselves. The night highway is dimly lit. The only thing guiding you here are the numerous street signs placed along the roadside. And another stage takes you through a foggy mountainside, and much like the night, the fog really limits your sight. The game even decides to start throwing things in the middle of the road, like rocks, enormous logs, oil slicks, and small pools of water that will all slow your car down. In closing, I do love playing this game, and I have a ton of fond memories trying to shave off time at every turn. Another really big draw to this game for me was the music. For the Sega, it's well done. The only setback here is that it only plays during the title card for each race. So, if you wanted to hear the fantastic music that they put into this game, you would have to actually idle on that screen for a little while. But maybe this is why the game plays as smooth as it does.
Congratulations!
Somewhere in the center of our ever-expanding universe is a glass orb. Inside that orb, planets are molded and formed over time before being thrown into the reaches of space. During creation, some new worlds will be granted the gift of intelligent life. When these planets are conceived, a ruler must be appointed. This position is highly sought after and often leads to a battle of the Tyrants. Fight through time. As one of these tyrants, you must be capable of leading a whole race of people into the future and the fight for their life. You make every move and decision for them right from the start. In a nutshell, the game starts like this. You pick from one of 4 overlords, none of which are really unique aside from the name and their color. Then you select which island you want to conquer first and how many people you want to appoint to it. This part really matters, as there are about 9 different epochs and each has many landmasses to conquer, so you want to try and save some workers for later cycles in the era. Once an epoch is finished, that pool will be reset to 100. Okay, so for this battle we will face off against 2 other leaders on a 7-square map. Right away, try to form an alliance with one of the leaders.
No way. Huh, no. Huh, no. No way.
These ones pretty much tell me to go fly a kite at the start of the map, so my next move is to place people in the mines to collect elements. This way we can start researching weapons and armor to upgrade our army. Leaving people in the base, they get bored. But this is a good thing. Bored people start humping and that creates more people. This is a smart move considering the size of this map and the number of adversaries I'm going against. The more people you have, the less amount of in-game time it takes to get blueprints for crafting. The more blueprints you have, the further you advance your race into future technologies.
We've advanced a tech level.
You start out the game as a simple caveman using only a stone and sticks, but by the end of the game you're calling in air raids and UFO attacks. Now that we have the basics out of the way, let's go and conquer another one of these castles. Now, once that building is destroyed, the life forms that you sent there will start construction on a new home base. The different spots on the map house various resources for crafting something you may have not had at the start of this battle. Much like anything, farming a spot too long will dry it up. That's when it's time to start dominating even more. If played right, you'll have more servants than you'll even know what to do with by the end of each battle. For the Sega Genesis, that's my 5 honorable mention. These are games that I absolutely loved, and personally I think they helped define the Sega Genesis and help separate it from what the Nintendo was trying to do at the time, even the Super Nintendo, because some of them came out around the same time that, the Nintendo was still running. But regardless, like I said, if you guys know about these games, and you've loved them before, let me know in the comments down below. If not, again, same thing. Let me know, what you thought of them. Did they pique your interest? Did any of them look, fun to you, or something that may appeal to, your type of play style when it comes to, games? But regardless, I hope you guys enjoyed. And as always, I'm Rewind Mike. Thanks very much for watching.